Well, hello, my name is Chris Oppenheimer here in San Antonio, Texas, and this is my very first #1 podcast, and it's Chris Oppenheimer, Real, Raw, and Authentic. And I couldn't think of a better couple to start my podcast with than my very own parents, Cliff and Shirley Oppenheimer. So welcome, Mom and Dad. Thank you for being here. I really, for years, have been talking about writing a book, starting a podcast, and I really just didn't know when the right time was going to be. And all of a sudden, over the last couple years, it came to me that it's time to get real, raw, and authentic about everything that we do in our lives. I feel like so many things have been shoved under the table and so many things people aren't talking about. And I want to bring it to the forefront. And today, I have my parents, and both of my parents are cancer survivors, and I'm 51 years old currently, and I try to be as healthy as I can. And I think that that's why we're even here today, is because, about 15 years ago, I started to pursue the path of natural health. And I've continued to share that through the years. And over the last 3 years, we started a company for our family called Botany Scientifics. And that's another story. People will figure that out. But, what I want to talk about today is cancer. And Mom, you're a cancer survivor. When were you diagnosed with cancer, and what was that feeling like?
I was diagnosed in 1991 with breast cancer, and what it felt like is just knowing I had loved ones around me and everything they were supportive, they were very supportive and everything, but you know what, you feel lonely. I think that when you have cancer, you feel lonely because there's not anything anyone really can do about that but you. But one thing that helped me get through that is I thought, you know what, I may not be healthy right now, but someone could be on the highway tonight and not be here tomorrow that's very, very healthy. And so that really, Chris, is what helped me get through that, just knowing that, if I did the right thing, had great doctors and everything, had a support system around me, and with all that, and just knowing that, my chances were just as good as somebody else's that could not be here tomorrow after having, if they had an automobile accident or something.
Exactly. And Mom, when you got cancer, what I want to talk about is real, raw, and authentic, because where we are in society today is it feels like a lot of times that we are giving one choice of what we have to do. And people aren't really given options. And you were given several options when you had cancer many years ago. And you did not take radiation. You did not take chemo.
I did not.
And to this day, you take zero medication. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I'm 75 years young. And it's your age is only a number. And so that's true, Chris.
So the reason why I brought that up is because the people that are listening to us are talking, everybody's family gets into these situations. And a lot of times they get fearful on what's the best option for me. We hear the natural route, we hear the chemo route, we hear the radiation, and nobody really knows what's right or wrong. We have to go what's right for us. So what was that decision like for you?
Well, you know what? Everyone was trying to tell me what to do. Just like you said, people say you should do this, you should not have chemo, you should have radiation. And so I had to ignore all of that. And what I had to do is I just had to decide what I was going to do. So I did go to a doctor in Dallas also. I had 13 doctors, oncologists here because I was with the Southwest Cancer Research Board here in San Antonio. But I still had a second opinion. I went to Dallas. And I spoke to a doctor there, and he told me that I needed to have chemo. Well, I chose not to. I came home, talked to the 13 oncologists that were on my team here, and they said, because there is no cancer in your lymph system, we don't recommend chemo at all. And so that was the best thing that I've ever done. I did not have chemo, did not have radiation. I did have a choice of either a lumpectomy or a mastectomy. Well, I chose to do a mastectomy.
And you've been a cancer survivor ever since. I know that You're very proactive now. You're always looking for the best natural solution. And, when we started our family company a few years ago, it was really all about soil, plants, and community, and really getting people back to the natural way of thinking. And you went through that journey. I believe I was living up in Maryland or Pennsylvania at the time. And You know, Dad, you just 2 years ago this month,
Yep.
you were diagnosed with cancer. And 2 years ago this month, they gave you, if I'm not mistaken, they gave you 6 months to live with no chemo. Is
Right.
that correct, Dad?
That's correct.
And they said if you did chemo, you could possibly get 2 years. Was that correct?
That's correct. I just got 2 years.
And you just got 2 years, but your 2 years, they told you, is this not correct? Correct me if I'm wrong, that you would always have cancer and always have to take chemo.
It's an incurable cancer that I've got. It's a ureter cancer, never been cured.
Never been cured, and it's linked directly to Agent Orange in Vietnam. Is that correct?
In my case, MD Anderson doctors said that it was due to my age. I was in Vietnam. There was a high percentage of his patients that were Vietnam vets, so Agent Orange was the one that triggered it.
And so the Agent Orange, explain, because a lot of people throw that word around freely, Agent Orange, like it's nothing. Explain to people what Agent Orange really is and what it was and what it did.
Agent Orange is a chemical that would defoliate all the growth in Vietnam so our American soldiers and airmen could spot the enemy and not be trapped. 11 years after coming back from Vietnam, my body started shutting down. The first thing I was doing was limping real bad. And eventually got to the point where my wing commander said, Oppie, something's wrong with you. You need to see what it is. Well, they've tried almost every drug known back then. They had no idea what Agent Orange was going to do to people. But I ended up at 11 years when the body started shutting down, like I said, I got psoriatic arthritis. I got fibromyalgia. The list just kept adding up. They put me in a hospital for 2 months at Lackland Air Force Base. The skin was just falling off my body. Everything was really weird. Doctors had never seen it. AIDS wasn't even prevalent at that time. So they had one fella quarantined in one part of the hospital, and I was in another hospital with the unknowns. So after 2 months, they said, go back to your base. We'll let you know what we're going to do. And they gave me a disability back then, and that's where we've been forever.
So you got medically disabled, and we moved to San Antonio, I believe.
Yes, that's right.
I was in middle school, and that was a traumatic time in my life because you weren't healthy. I'm in my teenage years, going through my adolescence, and that's a whole nother topic. But today we're going to focus on cancer. So,
well, when you do get back, tell them about your trumpet playing in a little one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, traumatic was for real. But Dad, so 2 years ago you got cancer. You chose to do the chemo in high amounts, and the last 2 years Mom, thank you. She's been your caretaker. It's been ups and downs, and just last week or the last couple weeks, you've gone in for your scan, and what have your results been?
Results were that they saw no active cancer in my body, and she said we show no cancer, and I said where, and she said over your entire body, and I thought, well, it's hard to believe from just a few months back. It was there, and it had already metastasized in 5 other places, I believe. So in 3 months, it's like a miracle from God, and my Delta-8 products have been taken. And that's what I truly believe.
Dad, we can't make any claims, but you've been a big proponent, and you mentioned Delta-8, and we happen to know a good company that has great products in that realm. But I've been the son, and through my addiction and everything, I've always been the kid that always pushes the envelope. When I found out that the studies were showing in Israel a year ago, I came to my family and I said, look, we got to introduce this Delta-8, but I want to make sure that we do the right one. And how many people out there know somebody, or they're a child, and they go, I wish I would have known about this when my parents were living.
Absolutely.
And guess what? I found out about that in the middle of Dad's cancer journey. But here's what I want to say, because, you know, I remember talking to your doctor. She's amazing. And it was a conflict 2 years ago between her and I, because I wanted all natural. She wanted this. And somewhere in the middle always lies the truth. And that is what Real, Raw, and Authentic is all about, is let's take all sides and find out what the truth is. And the truth is, my mom is a cancer survivor and never took any radiation or chemo. The fact is, my dad has taken all the chemo that they could possibly put, so much so, the end of November of 2021, you became so toxic to chemo, you could no longer take chemo, right?
That is correct. They said if I took another dose, and I was sitting there in the chair ready for it, and they came in and said my blood count was so low that if they gave it to me, I would have no immunity.
You would have ceased to exist if they would have given. I mean,
likely.
you were hardly able to walk at that point, if you remember.
That's true.
It was very, very scary. We had in-home help. I mean, everything was in place for you not to be here today. And you and I have been praying for miracles, and I've been praying for a miracle for your health, for our business, and for myself. And we're getting those miracles. But here's what's cool. You had a highly aggressive cancer, correct?
That's correct.
For 2 years, they said you would have to take chemo for the rest of your life, correct?
Of some sort.
Some sort. And in December, you could no longer take chemo, could you? And in January, 1 month later, you take this test after taking large amounts of Delta-8. And we did a key lime, because key lime essential oils is an antibacterial. And when you mix that with the Delta-8, which you can read the studies in Israel, we know what they are. We can't say anything. But you take what the doctors say, and you take what we know that's in another country. You went 1 month with no chemo, and the results a month later, where's the tumor?
They said they couldn't see it. It looked like scar tissue.
Scar tissue.
Wow.
Just every hair on my arm just stood up.
I have no hair.
But it grew back on your head.
That's all from the chemo.
And Dad, that's what Real, Raw, and Authentic is, because we are at a time and a place where we have an opportunity to take things that God put on this earth to put into our human bodies and to make a difference. And the doctors can say what they want, we can say what they want, and we live in a world where I know what works, but we can't say it.
Yeah.
And you were taking 3 full dropperfuls of that Delta-8 key lime tincture every day, religiously, and I bet you still are.
Yeah.
And he even told me, son, I feel a little dopey. We have to pull you back a little bit, because we realize he's been high all the time. But he's healthy, you know. We're healthy, not high. Your cancer's gone, Dad. What does it feel like? 2 years thinking you're going this way. You've been very quiet the last week. What's going through your head?
Well, she asked me on the way over here. It says, do I ask you too many questions? And my response to her was, yeah, sometimes you do. Like last night. It took you a half hour to get out of the house because you kept coming back and asking me, you need anything? Can I get you this? Can I get you that? I'll tell you what, God put her in place of me many years ago, back in 1962. And she said, I just want to take care of you, you know, and she's made me cry, and I've made her cry, and we'll get through this somehow, some way.
Well, you've gotten through it, Dad, and it's a privilege to have you and Mom
Thank you.
on my very first podcast to talk about a subject that many families are dealing with, which is cancer. And what I want to do here at Real, Raw, and Authentic with Chris is to show different views. And so we want people to know that whatever their choice is, that's their choice, and that's what freedom is.
That's right.
And you had the freedom to choose, and you're cancer-free to this day and take 0 medication. Dad, the military's had you on all kinds of medication for years. It's been a roller coaster. But 2 years of our whole family, it brought our family together, number one, which was very, very powerful. My sister and I have a better relationship than we've ever had. And you and I mean, it's just been beautiful, but it is a miracle.
It is.
And we can't say
Lots
what
of
it
prayer.
is, but we do know that God, Genesis 1:29 says, everything was put on this earth for the healing and nourishment of our body. I want to thank both of you for trusting me as your son to guide you the right way and make the right choices and to build a company to really go out and make a difference. Thank you. And for all of you watching, this is Real Raw and Authentic with Chris, and we're just going to hit subjects head on, and we're going to talk about subjects that most people push under the rug. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for being my very
Thank
first
you.
guest.
Thank you. Hey.